dalhin nyo na yung litrato dito ni Doroy, no? We will be installing this trolley dun sa 4th floor. You may want to say a few words.
President Estrada, Mr. Gutierrez, and Mr. Estrada, my Lola died in May 4, 1987, so almost 30 years, and I'm sure with the young faces that I see, I'm sure most of you maybe knew of him, but maybe did not personally know him. Because even his children, my mother and her sisters, are already old women, and that's why she did have to send for a person like me. That picture of my lolo with Luz Magsaysay is actually at the entrance of his rest house in Lasbac in Pansol. Yes, it's actually in the entrance. And there's another, and beside it, there's another picture of him. It's a caricature of him with a hose. It's a cartoon of him with a hose watering the building of the NPC. And those are in his, those are the entrance of the house. And that just shows to you how important this institution was to him. He was the first president of this club. I know he was also the first chairman of the KBP, and also the first chairman of the ad board. A lot of the media institutions I know in the Philippines, well, he was a pioneering leader. His politics aside, you know, he was very close and found that his media men as his brothers. You know, his politics, he was pro-Marcos, but at his deathbed, Cory was there because he was a good friend of Ninoy. Even during before and after the revolution, Ramon Mitra would always be in the house every Sunday for merienda. So I was a witness to that. I'm almost 50 years old, but I was a witness to basically a time when newspapermen were an exclusive group, respected by everyone. In fact, many of them became politicians like Doroy Valencia, Mr. Mitra, Mr. Aspiras. So your group, your association was very, very important to my grandfather. There were two types of people he liked the most. He said artists and musicians. But there were two types of people that he loved. And those were orphans and newspapermen. Orphans because he was an orphan. And he found his happiness when he went to the University of Santo Tomas, where he became the editor of the Varsitarian. And that's where basically he found his life, his calling, and most importantly, a brotherhood, a lifestyle. And I know it was very important to him to the day he died, every day. And all his free time, in the morning he'd be in the 365 Club in the Manila Intercon with newspapermen. In the evening, he will be out, at least in the 70s and the 80s, when I was conscious of his activities, he will be at the NOPC with newspapermen. And on Sundays when we'd see him, there were always newspapermen in the house. So, I think that's the spirit that the club tries to continue to create. You know, the brotherhood, the kinship of media men, and I think it's very important because this is this had always been part of from what I recall, the legacy of journalists who came before. The reason why the Fourth Estate remains to be strong is not just because of your wits or your wits or your effort to promote the standing together and helping each other. And the message from my mother and my titas is that they're very grateful that you remember him. You know that most of you don't know him personally, but you remember his spirit. And we hope to continue supporting the club. If there's anything maybe that we can do to help, to assist in your programs, please let us know. Thank you very much.
Special Resolution Number 1, Series of 2016, on the installation of Doroy Valencia to the NPC Journalism Hall of Fame. Whereas, the National Press Club of the Philippines from time to time confers to prominent Filipino journalists and patriots its supreme recognition of their contributions to the growth and development of the journalism profession in the country in particular and in general, on the impact they left behind during their lifetime in the charting of the nation's history. Whereas, among these Filipino journalists and patriots is Doroy Valencia, President of the National Press Club from 1955 to 1956. The NPC recognized that Doroy was instrumental, first in its incorporation as a non-stock non-profit organization in 1952, and second, in the actual construction of the NPC building in 1954. Today, the NPC building, already declared a historical site and landmark in Manila by the National Historical Institute, remains as the concrete manifestation of Doroy's concern for the welfare and unity of Filipino journalists, and on his prodigious talent as a leader and organizer of unabated excellence. Whereas all his life, Doroy not only struggled to be known as a good journalist, respected for the mastery of his craft, but also as a man whose concern for the poor and the downtrodden finds few equal. The titles accorded to him by his peers and civil society alike, Dean of Filipino Journalists, Philanthropist, and Builder of Rizal Park, among others, are all well-deserved. Whereas, the 8th Congress in 1990 passed Republic Act 6836, renaming the Agrifina Circle at the Luneta Park in Manila as the Doroy Valencia Circle in recognition of the contributions made by Doroy to our country and our people during his lifetime. Whereas, the present leaders of the National Press Club and its entire membership can do no less, but also pay their long overdue respect to Doroy and his efforts to make journalism a true noble profession, and the NPC a solid foundation of his vision for a responsible and enlightened press. Therefore, it is hereby resolved by the 2016-2018 Executive Board and Directors of the Club to install Doroy Valencia to the NPC's Journalism Hall of Fame through this special resolution, done this 28th of October 2016 on the occasion of the 64th anniversary of the National Press Club held at the Bugluagang Plaridel, Intramuros, Manila, attested by Paul Gutierrez, President. Okay, let's acknowledge the presence of the grandson also of Doroy, Mr. Rich Valor. Palakpakan po natin. Well, habang nagpipicture-picture po sila, paliwanag lang po natin sino po talaga si Doroy. Si Doroy po ang kauna-unahang namuno sa National Press Club na nakakita sa pangangailangan ng ating mga kapatid. Doon po sa mga kapuspalad sa atin na medyo hindi nasusweldoan na maayos, ang takbuhan po noon si Doroy. Sa panahon noon ngayon, meron na kayong hindi lang Doroy, meron na po kayong Paul Gutierrez, at meron din po kayong Joel Ecco, and at the same time, meron pa rin po kayong Benny Antiporta na pwedeng takbuhan. So, sa oras na pangangailangan, puntahan lang po si Tina Marali. So, muli, palakpakan po natin si Doroy Valencia Ito po ang kanyang larawan bilang pag-alala natin sa kanyang kabutihan sa larangan ng pamamahayag. Magsitayo po tayo at magpalakpakan. Can I call on the board to please yan po yung yan po yung takbuhan po namin dati pagka talagang walang-wala na. Doroy. Para yung mga siga sa dulo para hindi makrap. Okay. Oh, dito.
Wala akong makrap at ako si Paul.
Yan. Uy, Arlie, yung bata. Yung bata. Hindi ka na naman makikita eh. Oh, yung against the light, ha? Pwede. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, ito po yung pinakawalang kwentang parte ng programa, the closing remarks. At hindi ko na ho sila hihiling.